Hello, and thank you all for joining us this evening. I'm happy to help be facilitating the benefits of pursuing your degree overseas presentation. What I'm going to do is share my screen really quick just to show you all a slide that is focused on some housekeeping before we get started with our topic. So first of all, if you have any questions for any of our panelists, I ask that you use the Q&A button to type your questions in the box. You can ask those questions at any point in time, so don't hesitate. If it comes to your mind, just type it in, and if there's time at the end, our panelists will be able to get to that question. Your camera and microphone are off. That's a setting that you cannot change, so just keep that in mind as you're watching with us. And a recording will be available for you too. So we are recording this session, and it will be made available in probably about a week if you want to watch again, or perhaps you have a friend that wasn't able to watch that session. And of course, sign up for more sessions. You can see that at NJACAC /virtualfair.org/virtualfair. So if you like more of what you're seeing and want to see more of those things, we definitely recommend that you do so. I should also mention my name is Kate Slate. I am the College and Career Counselor over at Chatham High School up in New Jersey. So we're covering a whole bunch of different places all across the world here tonight. And without further ado, I will pass it over, and I think we're in for a really great panel. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Alrighty, we're going to pull up our PowerPoint, and I just want to echo Kate's introduction and say thank you so much for joining us. I know all of us are really excited to be talking to you a little bit about the options for international higher education and some of the benefits associated with that. My name's Emily Gruby, and I'm a Global Recruitment Officer for Duke Kunshan University, and that is located all the way over in China. It is a joint venture institution with Duke University here in the US, and I'm excited to tell you a bit more about that. Before I let the other two introduce themselves, I do want to just remind you to use the Q&A function whenever questions come up. We're going to save those questions until the very end, but I encourage you to continually ask them as they come to mind. And if they are directed at a specific institution, then please write that in the question. All right, and I'll let Annabelle and Jackie introduce themselves. Oops.
Annabelle's muted, but I'll go first. Hi guys, my name is Jackie Christopher. I'm with University of Roehampton, based in Southwest London. We're about 30 minutes away from the center of London, but we're still in London. And I'm their regional manager, and I am based just outside of New York City.
Thanks, Jackie. And sorry, everyone, I was muted. My name's Annabelle Molina, and I work for the Americas team as part of the University of East London. We're based in East London, which has, over the last 10 years, become a really great spot for everything, especially everything art related. So I'm looking forward to providing you more information about our university.
Alrighty, and this is just a general introduction into kind of the agenda for our presentation. We'll quickly go over some of the ins and outs of the education system in our respective countries, as well as costs associated, the different styles of the courses, as well as transportation, travel, all the things that you're kind of considering when you think about going to college, but also living in a different country. And so without further ado, I'll let Jackie go ahead and introduce the UK.
Great, thanks, Emily. So, you know, why study in the UK? What are the benefits of studying in the UK? In England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, students can take a 3-year bachelor's degree. So it could be a bachelor's of arts, bachelor's of science. So that saves you a full year's worth of tuition, living expenses, and also time. The reason why is because those programs, those degrees are very subject focused. So you're not doing any prerequisites, you're going directly into the program. Scottish universities are actually 4 years long, and the reason why is because you can kind of touch up on different subjects based in the same department and then narrow down your focus as you go along. It's very similar to our American system. And that's actually why the American system, higher education system, is based off of the Scottish system. So if you're not sure what you want to study, then the Scottish system might be a better option for you. But if you know exactly what you want to study, you want to get, you know, your degree quicker, international experience, England, Wales, or Northern Ireland might be a better option for you. And you can do a single degree for one subject, or you can do a joint honors, which is 2 subjects in 1 degree. The other attraction is that there is a high quality of teaching. You know, British degrees are looked favorably on, and there's a lot of smaller class sizes. So cost of international education, remember you're receiving that full year's worth of tuition, living expenses with that 3-year degree. So again, that you're saving money right there. But just alone, tuition rates average around $20,000 a year. That could be just as much as a state school or even cheaper. Cheaper tuition plus shorter degree time means the UK offers American students a very cost-effective option for their education. And we actually broke it down: tuition, living expenses, tuition roughly 17 to 21,000 a year, living, and we're talking about housing, food, you're looking about 15 to 20,000 a year. And we accept financial aid, FAFSA. So the styles of teaching, what's, you know, different from studying in the UK than studying in the States? So there's different styles. So students will be able to go into lectures, which is very similar to the classroom styles here. Formal presentations by experts in the respective field to a large group of students. But then we also have seminar styles, which is small groups of 8 to 20 students. And it allows students to kind of have the opportunity to discuss their topics, talk about you know, what matters to them, being able to discuss that in a group. And then we also have tutorials, which is informal meetings in which students discuss their work with one another. Might be a little bit smaller, but it's a continuous assessment. So you are not going to get pop quiz tests every week. You can, in the UK, it's very common to have 1 or 2 assessments for the semester, maybe possibly 3, and they'll give you enough time to complete it as time comes along. But students are students are expected to produce coursework, participate in projects, seminars, and exams, but the exams is usually at the end of the semester. It's not as time progresses within the semester.
Great. So I'll carry on from here. So traveling around the UK. Now, I'm sure some of our attendees here today will have actually been to the UK. And for those of you that haven't, I'm sure that you've seen the movies and you can recognize these red double-decker buses. So these are very famous in London, and they run 24 hours. So the reason I want to mention the travel in the UK is because it is a real selling point. Very similar to New York, you can get around everywhere and you don't need a car. But that's not only limited to London. It's UK round. So we have within London we have the tube, which is very much similar to the subway. And as you see in my presentation, it covers over 250 miles and over 270 stations. So you can just imagine kind of, you know, how far you can go within the city, and also just to give you a perspective of how big the city of London is. But outside of London, we have airports across the UK, so in London, Manchester, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Belfast, and also we have trains that run all around the UK. So you can choose to fly to Edinburgh if you want a trip to Scotland, or you can choose to take the train up to Scotland. So it's great to have that accessibility around the UK and not to be dependent on a car. And also, one of the reasons that we kind of mentioned that a car isn't a big thing in the UK is because it is really quite a cost-saving thing. So to be able to not have to pay for any car maintenance means that you can, you know, invest in more in traveling in the UK, but also around Europe as well, which I think is a real selling point. So I know that some students might be interested to hear what the work regulations are when you come to the UK. So if you were to study in the UK, you would be on something called a Tier 4 student visa. And that Tier 4 visa allows you to work 20 hours during term time and up to 40 hours outside of term time. So that means that, for instance, if you stay over the Christmas holidays or the Easter break or the summer break, you could work up to full-time hours. But if you're studying and you just want a part-time job, you would have a cap of 20 hours per week that you could work. We really encourage students to get a job, but even more than a job, we encourage you to get internships whilst you're here, because that really helps with once you return back to the US and you're looking for future employment, an internship and any employment abroad really gives your employer some understanding that you have worked with different cultures, that you have international exposure. So all of these things are really beneficial. And obviously London is probably one of the most well-known cities across the world. So what that also means is that it's a place with plenty of jobs and with a lot of opportunities on your doorstep. So you know, there are so many internships available in a lot of sectors, you know, across the arts, across the business world, engineering, construction, and so on. And similarly, in terms of jobs, you can get a wide variety of jobs that you might not be able to get in smaller towns across the UK or the US. So that is a real selling point about London as well. And we're often asked, are UK degrees recognised internationally? Which I think is a really great question. And they are recognised internationally. You will notice that our degrees in the UK tend to be 3 years. This doesn't put employers off in the US just because they realise that the degree system here is different. A lot of the time, rather than looking at whether a degree is 3 years or 4 years, they'll be looking at the other things that you bring to, you know, to the table. So things like internships, as I mentioned before, but also what you've studied, what you've involved yourself in during your education abroad. And so a lot of the times we're finding that our students are returning home, but they really stand out to employers because, especially nowadays, where, you know, I'm based in the UK now and I'm talking to you in the US. So the division between countries is not as it was maybe 20 years ago. And because of that, employers are really looking for global and international exposure because the world is becoming so much more interconnected. So because of that, if you have studied abroad, it really just kind of shows, rather than being someone that says, oh, I understand different cultures and I am interconnected, to be able to actually study abroad is a real kind of stamp of approval that you understand that, and that you can really hit the ground running if you're asked to work with different cultures and with different countries in your job. And another thing is that probably one thing to mention is that there are certain programs which can have some difficulty in transferring. So we've mentioned below, psychology can be one and medicine can be another one, just because certain states can ask for certain accreditations. So that's something to look into. With that said, we do have students studying psychology and certain medical programs, but you have to kind of think of your long-term goal and whether that kind of fits in with transferring that back at home. So at this point, I'll pass you over to Emily.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and look at China, and I'm not going to look at the overall education system because I am from a joint venture institution. So this is kind of a unique model. So Duke Kunshan University, for example, is a joint venture institution with Duke University here in North Carolina. And so students who do study at DKU will spend most of their time in China, and Kunshan is just right outside of Shanghai. But you will have the opportunity to spend a semester in the US at Duke as well. And when you graduate, you actually earn 2 degrees in 4 years, 1 degree from Duke University, which is accredited, of course, here in the US, and the other from Duke Kunshan University, which has accreditation in China. But like the others have mentioned, these degrees are obviously recognized worldwide too. This particular program, all classes are taught in English. No Chinese language is required. However, we do require that all international students do study Chinese once they matriculate at DKU. But the majority of our international students actually enter without ever having taken Chinese before. So it really is not any sort of requirement. So like I mentioned, this is what we call consider a joint venture institution in China. So some of the kind of the benefits and attractions there are that we are a liberal arts and sciences institution, and we've tried to kind of reinvent that typical term by blending our disciplines. And so you'll see more of that if you check out our majors and some of our more specifics on our curricula. Additionally, you still do earn you earn 2 distinct bachelor's degrees in 4 years, the same amount of time that you typically would earn 1 degree in the US. And as a liberal arts institution, we do put a lot of emphasis on a small student teacher ratio and small class sizes. So that's currently a 7-to-1 student teacher ratio. Okay, so I'm sure you're wondering also what the cost of, because Duke is a pretty expensive institution. I do want to say that as a joint venture institution, we do charge the same as Duke. So Duke tuition, which is a very scary number of $55,000 a year. However, we're very generous with our financial aid and scholarships. We do award up to the full cost of tuitions through both merit-based aid and need-based aid. So to apply for any of this aid, you just have to apply to the university. For need-based aid, you will have to also submit your CSS profile, but everyone will be considered for merit-based aid automatically. One thing that I do like to point out when it comes to costs is even though we do charge Duke tuition, the total cost of attendance is significantly lower just because the cost of living in China is much lower than you'd see here in the US and North Carolina. So typically our living expenses cost between $5,000 to $12,000 per year. And of course that greatly varies from student to student depending on your own budget, but it is pretty affordable. As far as the working on campus and helping kind of support yourself that way, we do allow students to work on campus, but unfortunately visa regulations prohibit any kind of off-campus jobs. But we've really worked to provide a lot of opportunities for student employment. So we have students who definitely pair up their personal interests with their work as well. So we'll have students who do research with faculty members and get paid to do so. We also have students who work in the library or work in marketing. We even have a few student assistants who are in the International Enrollment Office too. So there are a lot of opportunities for you to kind of supplement your, I guess, funds while in Kunshan. Okay, so one thing that I think makes us really unique is our style of teaching at DKU. So we are founded on this core principle of rooted globalism. And so basically what we mean by that is that we're not just bringing students over to China to learn the Chinese way or even like learn the Duke way. It's really about bringing people from all over the world together and sharing our own perspectives and learning from each other. So we have students from over 50 countries in our first 3 classes. We have faculty that also kind of mirror that diversity as well. So really a whole lot of perspectives coming together. Our classes are very discussion based and they're also experiential. So one way that we've kind of modeled that is through our class schedules. So classes are actually only Monday through Thursday. So Fridays are meant for co-curricular education, which may be field trips for your classes. It might consist of doing some research with a faculty member or some volunteer work. Our Career Center actually brings students into Shanghai and Suzhou on Fridays to do like corporate networking events with big international companies, because we're only about 20 minutes outside of Shanghai and 20 minutes outside of Suzhou, which Suzhou is another large city in China. If you're unfamiliar, it's about the population of New York City. And then of course Shanghai is over 25 million. We are, I mentioned this a few times, but we're kind of a blend of a U.S. Institution style and a typical Chinese institution. And one way that that kind of presents itself is through our academic calendar. So we do have a U.S. Calendar in the sense that our semesters run from August to December, and we do have a winter break, which is actually kind of rare in China to have, essentially like a Christmas break off. But to follow the US calendar, we run August to December and then January to May. But within those semesters, there's 2 7-week sessions, which, the classes are a little intense during that time because the classes are basically a semester's worth of coursework crammed into 7 weeks. However, you're only balancing 2 to 3 classes at a time instead of the typical 5 that you'd take at a US institution. I also want to mention that as a joint venture institution, we do receive special privileges in China. And for those of you who may not be aware, there is a lot of like censorship in as far as like the internet goes. There are websites that are blocked, such as Google and Facebook, but as a joint venture institution, we actually are allowed to have an internet proxy on campus that allows students to, access all those important sites like Facebook and Netflix, but also all of Duke's digital library resources, which just makes, I think, doing schoolwork and research a little bit easier if you have all those resources available. Additionally, we have complete academic freedom, so there's no censorship in terms of individual discussions in the classroom or research projects or anything like that. It truly is, academically free in terms of, what you choose to study and talk about in the classroom. Okay, so I've already mentioned our proximity to Shanghai and Suzhou, but I also want to kind of go into Kunshan a little bit too, because it is considered to be a small city by Chinese standards, but as someone who lives in Durham, North Carolina, Kunshan is a pretty big city. It's 1.7 million, and so with that, they do have an excellent public transportation system. I've already mentioned it's less than 20 minutes to get to Shanghai or Suzhou. And it's just really easy to do that. So our students definitely take advantage of our proximity to those big cities and the ease to get into those big cities. They, will go into Shanghai for class field trips or, with our career center, as I mentioned, those career treks, but they'll also go into Shanghai for nightlife and dinner and that kind of thing. So it's very easily accessible. Even within Kunshan, which is the middle photo here, it is a big city, but there's also a lot of green areas. So I think it provides a really unique perspective. And there's also a lot of historic water towns that represent more of like the traditional side of China. So as far as like location in China, I think it's just a really really cool place to spend your college career. Additionally, I mentioned, we don't have classes on Fridays, but we do also have, long weekends throughout the semester as well for different Chinese holidays. So our students also take advantage of that to explore different cities in China and different parts of Asia too. I know that Annabelle mentioned the ease of traveling around Europe and around the UK, and I want to echo that for Asia too. It is very affordable to travel around Asia on holidays too. And then finally, we do have the DKU Quest program, which actually is a program run by our Student Affairs Department, and they oversee travel opportunities to different locations in China. And so, they may bring students up to Beijing to visit the Great Wall, or more towards Western China to visit some Tibetan villages. There's been a lot of really cool opportunities with DKU Quest, and we're lucky to be able to subsidize the costs for students on that. So it's free or very low cost to participate in those. Okay, and as I mentioned, these degrees certainly are recognized internationally. Duke University, of course, you've probably heard of them, but it is a top university worldwide and consistently ranked in the top 10 US institutions. And when you do graduate, you get degrees from both Duke University and Duke Kunshan University. In addition to just the actual degrees, you're becoming a member of these alumni networks, and so you have access to all of those resources as well when it comes to being a Duke and Duke Kunshan alum. We do have a pretty stellar career services department that offers career counseling, job search training, internship resources, and corporate networking events. I've touched on some of these throughout, but their goal is to really assist students in preparing for careers all over the world. So not just in the US and not just in China. Additionally, we have a pretty stellar academic advising team that provides guidance for students looking to do graduate school, maybe med school, law school, or any other kind of like pre-professional graduate programs. And I think in this sense, it is very similar to a US institution in the types of like student support services that we offer. And just to kind of sum up the DKU part, you know, I mentioned a few times how we were trying to kind of redefine the traditional liberal arts and sciences approach to higher ed. And we've done this through creating a research-oriented institution. And so there's a few different buzzwords you'll see if you look further into DKU, and that's like interdisciplinary, experiential, and innovative. And I've touched on that briefly throughout this presentation. But I do want to remind you that we are a new institution. So we actually only have freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. So we haven't had a graduating undergraduate class yet. So we're looking for students who are really wanting to be pioneers in that regard as well.
All right, so we will go on to University of Roehampton in London. University of Roehampton, we've been teaching for over 175 years. We are based southwest of London, about 30 minutes away from the center of London, about 10 minutes away from Wimbledon, 20 minutes away from Heathrow Airport. So it's a great location. And we have 54 acres of Parkland campus. And as you can see in the picture, that's actually what our campus looks like. It's stunning, it's gorgeous, and it's because of the location we're at. It does not feel like the center of London, it feels like the suburbs. So if you are a type of student who isn't really sure if the city life is for you, but you do want to be a part of London, this is a great option. It still gives you that American style campus feel. 54 acres of Parkland campus, everything's right there, nurse's office, housing, library, lectures. So you don't have to worry about housing, trying to find that on your own, because a lot of central London universities, you do have to find housing on your own. It's not guaranteed. Roehampton offers that. And it's a medium-sized university, not too big, not too small. My contact details are there. And also just to let you know, we are ACT, SAT optional, which is a great option. And it's very rare to find for a UK university. Annabelle?
Thanks, Jackie. So University of East London, as you can see from the logo in the middle, we started off in 1898, but we were a polytechnic university. So we gained university status in 1992, and we're one of the new universities that were started up around the UK. So we don't necessarily have that old legacy, but we do have some really amazing successes over the last 25 plus years. So one of them has been that we have an excellent psychology program. Our psychology research team, they tied first with Oxford and Cambridge in 2014. And I'm sure a lot of you know about Oxford and Cambridge, maybe to do with Harry Potter, but also to do with just them as institutions and their caliber. So it just goes to show what a great psychology department we have. We're also second in London for architecture, civil engineering, and psychology. So all of our programs are ranked really highly within the London area. We also have a really amazing sports centre. So in 2012, the London Olympics were hosted, the Olympics were hosted in London, and we had the US basketball team using our facilities, and it's created a real legacy of sport at the university, which has been fantastic because we've had some real successes. So we've had students go abroad to play sports, and we've had some real successes in seeing the sports ranking go up for the University of East London, and we do offer sports scholarships. So if you are on here and you're like, ooh, I really love soccer or I really love tennis, we do offer sports scholarships. So do feel free to reach out if that's something that interests you. And as I mentioned before, we're based in one of the most dynamic cities. We have a bit of a different setup to Roehampton. Roehampton has that kind of lush, gorgeous green. We're not in that kind of area, sadly. We don't have the greenery, but what we do have is we're very near the center. So across, you can see in the third photo below, we have the River Thames, and across there you can see the financial district. So it's really fun. It's a really fun place to be. It's not in the heart of London, but it's very near the heart of London that you can kind of hop everywhere, which is really exciting. And we're one of the only universities in London to kind of have a campus environment, which is fantastic because it's a small campus. You can get around, but you can also just jump on the tube and go to wherever you need to be, which is a real plus to kind of have that home base, but also be able to jump around. And then I think we're going to discuss how we can apply. I'll just jump in and just mention from the University of East London, you can apply via 3 ways. You can apply via the Common App completely for free. You can also apply directly via our website, and you can also apply via UCAS, which you might have heard of if you plan to apply just mainly to UK institutions. There is no charge to apply via the Common App. There's no charge to apply via our website, but there is a charge if you want to apply via UCAS. It's around $40 or around that amount. And I'll pass you over to Emily and Jackie, who will speak about their institutions.
Yeah, for University of Roehampton, just to let you guys know, UCAS is kind of like your Common App in the UK. So that's your direct online application for UK universities, and you can only apply up to 5 UK universities. We are on UCAS, and we also have our own online application, but that's for free. We are not on Common App.
Okay, and so Duke Kunshan University, there are only 2 ways to apply. One is through Common App, and that is the only Duke Kunshan direct application. That is free. And then if you're also applying to Duke University already, there is a checkbox on their application this year that will allow you to also have your application considered for Duke Kunshan. There's no advantage to applying that way unless you're already applying to Duke. And the only reason I say that is because the Duke application does have a pretty hefty application fee. I think it's around $85. So if you're just looking at DKU, I definitely encourage you to go the Common App route, which is a free application. And while we're on this, I know we already received a question kind of about the application process. And so hopefully this gave you some glimpse into that, and basically just, asking what we need to submit to international colleges to apply as a US student. So in the Common App, there is, there are essays required, as well as some general application information. For DKU this year, we are test optional, so it's totally up to you if you want to submit your test scores or not. There's no advantage to submitting or not. It just depends on which path you want to take. And I know Jackie mentioned test scores a little bit, but I don't know if you guys want to touch on maybe the application requirements or essays or things like that that you have in these different components.
Yeah, we have about 10 minutes for questions, but I'll touch lightly on this. So for UCAS, only 1 essay. The essay needs to be very direct. Why do you want to study this subject? Why specifically the UK, especially as an international student, and we need 1 letter of reference. Transcripts, any test scores can be sent directly to the admissions office. You can't attach it to the application. Yeah, and that's basically it.
And then from our end, it would just be a direct application. At that point, we would give you a conditional offer. You don't need to give any transcripts. You don't need to give any letter of recommendations. It's only when you get to the next part that you need to send over your transcripts. So it's a 2-part process for us.
All right, so
So-
that we are oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Jackie.
So we are just wrapping this up now. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. Please start asking your questions. We have a question and answer box at the bottom. We'd love to hear from you. And yeah, let's, I know, as Emily was saying, we do have a question about the application that came through earlier. Hopefully that helped. Just to kind of add to that for the UK is that they look heavily on AP exams or SAT2 subject tests. So just be careful. Some of them, the majority of them do. It varies for Roehampton on the program. I'm sure it varies for UEL. But make sure to take a look and make sure you know what you need to submit before applying. Any other questions?
I'll also expand a little bit. I didn't mention that it's pretty simple on the Common App as far as the components that are required, but we do also require, a few teacher recommendations, counselor recommendations, and your transcripts. But like I said, it's if you haven't started a Common App already, I'm sure you will soon, and you'll kind of see how easy and organized it is. So we do have another question here about when are the application deadlines for each school, and that is a really good question. I know for Duke Kunshan University, we have 2 application rounds. So we have early decision, which is due November 2nd, and regular decision is January 4th.
For University of Roehampton, we are rolling. We have rolling admissions.
And it's the same for the UK, it's rolling admissions. I would say it's a much later application deadline in the US. I think our latest applications we'll take in is around July of 2021. So you do have much more time to get your applications in, but it is also a different time frame in which when you'll receive your confirmation. So it's a bit of a longer lead time to get that confirmation from the UK side as well.
While we're waiting to see if any other questions come in, I do also want to give a little shameless plug for another NJACAC presentation that I'm doing, and it'll go a little bit more in depth into Duke Kunshan specifically, and that's going to be next week on October 5th. So definitely check out the StriveScan and NJACAC website to register for that.
All right, guys, any other questions? No?
All right, well, it sounds like things are wrapping up as we get, at least on the East Coast in our New Jersey world, get closer to dinner time. So what I'm going to do in the meantime, and if any questions still come through, please feel free to enter them in there, as we do still have some time. But I do want to pull up just one more slide to wrap up some housekeeping items. So just bear with me for one quick second. Great. So again, I just want to thank you all for joining us. At the end of this session, when we leave the meeting, there will be a quick survey. It's only 4 questions, super quick. So if you can please fill that out, that would be great. It will allow us to improve upon our programming and make sure we're serving you all and all of our students' needs best. Definitely encouraging you to sign up for more sessions. You can do that at njaacac.org/virtual fair. So definitely sign up for those and share with your friends friends and family for sure. And like I said earlier, the recording will be available likely in about a week, so you can find that at that same link as well if you need to go back and maybe get contact information for any of our wonderful panelists we had here today. But of course, if you have any questions, reach out to them, and they're here for you to help serve you. And so I really appreciate you all, Jackie, Annabelle, and Emily, for providing us with such good insight on what it's like to be studying across the pond for some and across the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a great night. Thanks for joining.
Bye.